Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Believe in best.
Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight, the foreign minister remembers a fallen Bahamian icon. Bahamian investors welcome to purchase the Grand Lucayan Resort. And Atlantis lends a helping hand to a local activist. Welcome to Our News, and thanks for joining us. I'm Jared Higgs. Topping news tonight, Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell remembering his dear friend, Sir Sidney Poitier. The legendary actor and philanthropist passed away Thursday night at his home in Los Angeles. Mitchell says Sir Sidney should be remembered as a great human being and someone who loved the Bahamas.
As someone who loved his country, loved his family, did well for us, understood the fundamental lessons that he always spoke about his parents, who were Cat Island farmers, and how they instilled in him the values which took him around the world. And I think that's how he'd like to be remembered. And of course, at the end of his life, he was very much interested in, after death, the integration of the human existence with the general universe. And now we see that he's now one for the ages.
Poitier became the first black man to win an Oscar for Best Actor in the 1960s for his role in Lilies of the Field, the bridge to Paradise Island named in his honor in 2012. Mitchell says Sir Sidney was a hero with a story worth telling.
There was a famous trial, when he served on the board of Disney. And he sat and they took him through the story of his life before he actually did the testimony. And before the testimony was completed, the judge interrupted and said it was a remarkable life. You can't make this stuff up. No one could have written a better novel. And I hope that one of the things we can contribute to ultimately, I know I mentioned this to Oprah Winfrey when she was here, that we need to find some way in the movies and on Broadway to memorialize such a remarkable life. And I hope our government is able to contribute to that going forward.
The Davis administration is open to a Bahamian investor purchasing the Grand Lucayan Resort, according to Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism Chester Cooper, who toured the property in Freeport this week. Jasmine Brown reports.
It's no secret the Davis administration is seeking a new buyer for the Grand Lucayan Hotel, and according to the Deputy Prime Minister, they're not ruling anyone out, including local investors.
We hope that we would be able to attract Bahamian investors to this property or joint ventures for the property. This is not just being marketed abroad, but we hope that locals with interest in tourism will come forward, either directly or as a part of a partnership with a foreign developer.
Cooper says the government's ideal investor would have significant resources, but also a vision for the property and a shared vision for the development of tourism and the island of Grand Bahama. Cooper said the government believes the property is key for the future development of that island.
I want to say to the people of Grand Bahama that we will not tarry in our work. We recognized what's riding on the redevelopment here, and we will work expeditiously to cause there to be a positive outcome for this property.
Back in 2018, the Minutes administration purchased a resort from Hong Kong conglomerate Hutchison Whampoa. The price tag, $65 million. 2 years later, in March 2020, an agreement between the government and Bahamas Port Investments Limited was signed, and the final buying price was $50 million. The Davis administration announced last month that the sale agreement was canceled. Now, with tourism bouncing back, Cooper says it's key to get the hotel up and running.
As you all know, tourism has rebounded significantly over the past several weeks and months. Notwithstanding the challenges of COVID, our numbers continue to be very, very strong. The product here in Grand Bahama certainly centers around not just this property, but the east end and the west end of Grand Bahama. There are many pearls here that still need to be uncovered, but the reality is that there are 6 golf courses here on Grand Bahama, so it's a great golfing destination. Diving is a significant opportunity The Minister for Grand Bahama likes to talk about Grand Bahama as the entertainment hub of the country and the driver of the orange economy. This property will be key to causing all of these ideas to come to life.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Doctors Hospital conducting an average of 3,000 COVID-19 tests per day during the month of December. CEO Dr. Charles Digges said the rise in cases is posing a significant challenge. Bertha McDermott reports.
Doctors Hospital performed nearly 90,000 COVID-19 tests in December alone, according to CEO Dr. Charles Digges, who said the majority of those tests were rapid antigen.
December, for example, we did just north of 90,000 tests. Now you're talking about 3,000 tests per day when you look at the total of all of our testing sites, especially predominantly rapid antigen testing. Our RT-PCR testing probably is about 15% of that, but they all require somebody collecting a specimen.
The country is in the grips of a fourth wave of infections, with nearly 3,000 cases recorded since December 27th. This week, Doctors Hospital advised the public of a 48-hour wait for PCR test results. Dr. Digges says they are experiencing a backlog due to increased demand.
It's not unusual to see the lines at any facility, and all of our facilities right now have challenges with the backup and the demand, which is increasing especially for rapid antigen testing.
Earlier this week, Dr. Digges said 120 employees at the facility were out due to COVID-19. He said having 40 specimen collectors out of the system has been a challenge in light of the increased demand for COVID testing. He added the increase in community spread has placed a strain on the healthcare system.
So we could least afford then to have the 40 testers out of circulation. We obviously, in response to that, in preparation for that, we have a fairly robust engagement strategy where we can bring on specimen collectors fairly quickly over about a fortnight. So, we anticipated that kind of challenge, and we're responding to that.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Bertha McDermott.
Thanks, BJ. Well, some VAT registrants are missing their payments, and Financial Secretary Simon Wilson says that may be a way for government to collect more revenue.
One of the easy ones on the ground is this issue of non-compliance or non-filing by VAT registrants, where VAT registrants simply miss a quarter or miss a month and then continue onwards, or have filed and say, I owe you $20,000, but they don't actually pay the $20,000. They continue onwards. All right? So those are easy ones right there.
Government reduced VAT to 10% on January 1st and added VAT to bread basket items. Some have questioned how government would make up for potential revenue shortfall brought on by lowering the rate, but Wilson insists it will be revenue neutral or will result in more revenue being brought in.
And there's some other ones which involve using data more aggressively. One of the more interesting ones that we uncovered was, if you look at your electricity bill throughout the Bahamas, you discover you have more persons on BPL's roll than we have land registered. So if you think of this, say, for every house, there should be an electricity connection. All right? You have more electricity connections than you have houses in your property tax system.
The Financial Secretary addresses concerns over VAT being added to medications. And later, a med school welcoming students on Grand Bahama. Those stories coming up when Our News returns. Bahamas Bar Association President Khalil Parker says they're looking forward to the enhancement of the Legal Professions Act, which will improve regulatory functions of attorneys in the Bahamas. He says it will also assist with disciplinary action for attorneys.
One of the things that are top on my list is the updating and the modernization of the Legal Profession Act to plug some perceived gaps and some actual gaps in our regulation and in our legislation more generally. And I think that, credit to our ethics committee that has worked very hard, and our disciplinary tribunals that worked very hard to process these matters. It is, again, a public relations exercise for us to make sure that people know that they can come and that these matters are heard, and we are working assiduously to make sure that people are well served by the complaints process that we have.
The Act also makes provision with respect to the practice of law in the Bahamas for the admission of persons and their conduct.
I think that when they see and when members see the product of the legislative reform, I think people will be satisfied that we've taken the requisite steps to ensure that the Bar Association and our disciplinary mechanisms continue to be fit for purpose.
Financial Secretary Simon Wilson addressed concerns about VAT being added to medication, telling reporters that it was suppliers who were benefiting, with government being the largest purchaser of medicine in the country.
So the benefit of zero-rating medication actually fell to the suppliers of medication and not to consumers. Most medication countries actually distribute free or at significantly discounted amounts. So I really don't understand the context of that. Because if you look at the price levels, you will see that with zero rating of medication, there was no drop in the price or the inflation levels with respect to medication. So those savings went elsewhere. They didn't go to the consumer.
Still ahead, Hurricane Dorian didn't sway a medical school's plans on Grand Bahama. And later, a local activist gets a helping hand from a major resort. We have the details when our news returns. Welcome back. Dozens of students are expected to begin classes at Western Atlantic University School of Medicine on Grand Bahama next week. The school's managing director, Bill Colgan, says final preparations are underway.
We're making the final preparations of the first phase of the medical school, which is nearing completion right now, and we will immediately beginning construction on the second phase, which will double the size of the current campus. Faculty is currently on island, and students are on island as well.
The government signed an amended heads of agreement with Western Atlantic University School of Medicine earlier this week. Officials say it will provide a more profitable structure for the Bahamas as it removes the moratorium on medical schools. Deputy Prime Minister Chester Cooper toured the facility on Thursday. Colgan says despite the ongoing pandemic, which slowed their plans, establishing a campus on Grand Bahama was the right decision.
We're just, very happy to have made a decision to build here on Grand Bahama Island. To date, we've had a tremendous amount of success here on island on multiple fronts. We've gotten, as I've explained to the DPM, the quality of the labor has been second to none. The willingness on behalf of all of the workforce here on islands to meet commitments to open this program in January. It could not have happened without, a group of individuals that were very committed to the task at hand. The construction is only 11 months old from the clearing of trees. So, we're very proud at where we are and very pleased at the workforce that we've experienced here on island and the hospitality that we've received from all the folks here, as well as the support from all the elected officials that have really made this happen for us. So we very much are appreciative of that.
Up next, Atlanta staff lending a helping hand. That's coming up when our news returns. A local charity receiving a $4,000 check along with food and clothing donations from Atlantis Resort. Families of all murder victims had struggled to get by during the pandemic, which placed a heavy strain on many families and businesses. That's why the mega resort stepped in. Forum founder Candy Gibson says she's grateful for the help.
During COVID-19, we extended our arms so long to the Bahamian public. We made sure no one was turned away. And when it came down to nitty-gritty for us to turn someone away, that means we obviously didn't have it. So I want to thank the Atlantis Community Outreach, along with the executive management team that really supported the organization, especially during this time, because I went to my office many days, many weeks, without having nothing to provide for the Bahamian people other than a prayer. And so there were times I couldn't even pay my staff, but I still went to work and I still performed. And let us know at the end of the day, there is still hope in our community.
The nonprofit started out as a support program for families of murder victims, but has since expanded to include a homeless shelter, which now houses 5 families. Director of Food and Beverage at Atlantis, Carrie Turnquest, says the response from staff members who wanted to assist was overwhelming.
We received over 1,400 individual articles of gently used clothing and over 2,200 pounds of canned goods. And so, as I said, I'm so proud to be a part of Atlantis because it really speaks to the generosity of our individual team members.
This should inspire other companies, corporate entities to want to actually go out there and assist the needy persons without jobs and stuff like that. So I think this is a good start, and we just hope it doesn't end this way. It just continues.
Gibson also encouraged others in the community to get involved and help families in need.
Push me, because during COVID, it was rough for me too, because at the end of the day, I pay for my bills too. You go there and you push it for other people, but you don't know how your bills can get paid. All I know is God real and there's a God above. So I tell anybody, don't give up. Trust someone out there, see you by someone out there. Have God put your name in someone's mouth to be a blessing. So I'll continue trusting God. That's all I can say. And then I would say again, thanks to Atlantis. Your donation today goes a mighty, mighty long way.
Thank you for joining us for Our News Tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Jared Higgs. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.